All right. Hola. Oh, I should say hey. Hola. Buenos dias. Soy Señora Gose. I'm Suzanne Gose with Flip Flop Spanish and Spanish Geniuses. So today I get to talk to you about how teaching Spanish actually helped me. It wasn't so much my degree in education and being a public school teacher. I mean, that was good, but it was actually because I was teaching Spanish to high schoolers, junior hires, and then when I became a homeschooler and I was teaching little kids, how that changed, how I teach everything. So by the time my firstborn was 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, really 8 was kind of when we started formal studies. Up to that, it was just living and learning and Spanish classes. But those things, the teaching Spanish helped me to teach every other subject because, all I was trained to do was how to teach Spanish. And now I see that that made me a really good teacher in every other area, but it's not like rocket science or anything like that. I can totally help you to follow the same little tips or kind of have the same mindset as teaching a foreign language, and we'll see if it helps you as well. So take some notes, jot it down real quick. I have a little, PDF at the bottom that you can download, but honestly, that's part of learning as well. If you write it down real quick, you won't have to look at that anymore because writing it down is what gets it into your head, not looking at the list, but the action of writing it. So I recommend either jotting notes or writing it down again or something like that rather than just following the notes. All right, let's get started. I'm a homeschooling mama of 5. We have 2 left to graduate. We have a 9th grader and a 10th grader. So after this year, just 3 years left. I began homeschooling because I wanted to stay home with the first baby we had, and then I really missed teaching. And so I turned into a homeschool private class teacher when my first child was 9 months old. So I got to learn about homeschooling and be around homeschoolers and homeschooling mamas and homeschooling families when my firstborn was 9 months old. So I was already enveloped in this wonderful world, and I was actually teaching homeschool children before my child was even doing flashcards. I did have him doing flashcards very early, way too early. Don't do that. Okay, so as a homeschooling mama of 5, only 2 left to graduate. I have 2 high schoolers left. The main thing that I learned, not only from my mentors, but also from my years and years, 21 years now of teaching homeschoolers, and then before that in the public school, is involve me. Charlotte Mason says it, Ben Franklin says it in a certain way. Everybody has their own little quotes, but the basis is the summary, the sum up is involve me. You want to help engage your child when teaching Spanish or any other thing, they need to be involved. Okay, what's the basis? So here's the 4 things we're going to talk about today. How do we start? What is the actual activity? So you need to have those decisions. You need to figure out how do you start, what your activity is, how we finish, and then how often do you do that? So that's it. Whenever you teach Spanish, it's given me the structure of making sure I know what I'm doing to start, what the activity is for that session, that time period, how do I finish the lesson, and then how often do I do it. As a language teacher, that was it. That's all I learned in the nutshell. So now I'm going to teach you how to make it effective because as a language teacher, it has to be effective. It's interesting. I feel like with other things, history, science, it doesn't necessarily have to be effective, does it? You just get through the lesson. With language, if they can't use the new language, it was ineffective. You don't move on. It's like math. If they can't show you that they understand it, you don't move on. Same idea. So this idea needs to go to all subjects so they're actually learning. So here's starting. When you start, you have a plan. First, the plan is assume nothing. In my Spanish classes, I assume they know nothing. They love that. I say, I don't expect you to know any of this. And why would they? Why would they know the words I'm about to teach them? Why would they have used that before? They don't know. So I have a lot to do. So assume they know nothing. That's step 1. Then I say the target slowly. So I'm telling them what I need them to know, and I say it slowly, right? I'm giving them a list of words. In other subjects, you're telling them the objective. This is what we're going to do today. You don't zoom through it. Okay, that's what we're going to do today. Now we start. No. This is what the plan is. This is what we're doing. I don't expect them to respond. I expect them to listen. That's it. I still assume nothing. I've told them what we're doing today, and I don't think they know it. I haven't done anything yet. So there's no punishment. There's no objective that they failed at. There's no, hey, y'all remember about commas, right? No. Hey, y'all, you remember that? No. I don't ask, do you remember something? Or I'm not trying to build on anything from yesterday. I'm giving them new information, and I'm assuming they don't have that information yet. Now is the engagement. They're going to repeat something. So I'm having them say something back to me in history and science and math, in handwriting, in literature, in poetry, in grammar, whatever it is that you're doing with your students, you have them say something back to you. In the educational world, this is called checking for understanding. Unfortunately, in the educational world and all across mamahood in general, we say, okay, and we go on. We go, okay, you're going to do this, okay? And then we keep talking. We don't stop and actually check for understanding. We assume they got it. Now we can move on. We're interested in getting the lesson done, and kind of making sure that we've said the things that they need to be said. You need to have them say it back to you. That's called checking for understanding. Now you still assume nothing. They have said something to you, but you don't assume they have it yet. We haven't done the lesson yet. We're just telling them what we're going to do. Now they have shown you that they know what we're going to do, but that's it. And now you see what's stuck. All right. So from that little introduction, what else can you tell me? What do you think we're about to do? What do you think? We're assuming nothing because we're checking to see what they think. We're getting their information. All right, here's the nitty-gritty. What is the activity that you have planned today? Do you have a plan? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what your objective is? What are you hoping to accomplish? So with Spanish, I always taught the child. I was always interested in making sure the child understood the words coming out of my mouth and then could use those words to also communicate to me. And it was so exciting. I loved it. Unfortunately, I was not a very good homeschooler at the beginning. And I did not do that with science or or history or literature. I taught the lesson. There's a difference. I think it was because I wasn't comfortable with teaching anything else. And so even though I had a degree and blah, 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 it wasn't a classroom atmosphere. So I didn't have a process. I wasn't excited about them demonstrating their knowledge because it wasn't something I was passionate about. I cared, but anyhow, I was just doing what I was told to do and like checking it off. So make sure you're always teaching the child, not the lesson. The point was absorption for Spanish. So how did I get them to absorb? I let them listen. I let them do things. We doodled. I laughed. I commented. I gave them an input in Spanish or in English. We're drawing. We're doing charades. I made sure this was happening all over the classroom and all over my kitchen. It was a joy. I always wanted to make sure, I would say something silly. Why? Because that opened up synapses that caused things to fire that weren't firing otherwise. Before that, it's just not fun. I want to have fun. I want them to have fun. When they're having fun, they are learning. So if your point is to make sure they absorb and they grab something from the lesson, then you want to make sure they're engaged. How do you make sure they're engaged? Elicit some sort of emotional response. Not a negative one, though. What can you do to help them engage? Think about that. What does your child like? Even if it's just tickling them, if it's being silly, if it's singing a song, what is it that helps them to engage? Do that for every lesson. Feedback is key. Ask questions. That's why we have one mouth and two ears. We say stuff. We listen twice as much as we speak. Then I'm making sure at some point during the lesson they're teaching each other something or they're teaching me. Okay, well, what would you say? How would you say that? What would you, if you were in charge, how would you present this lesson? Tell me back what I just heard. This in Charlotte Mason is called narration. So at the end of the activity, that's the entire point is can they repeat this lesson. Matthew C uses this as a method. You teach the kid does the activity, then the kid teaches you. Charlotte Mason is narration. You tell them the stuff, you're reading out loud to them, they're just telling you. This is what the basis was of show and tell, where you're trying to get the kid to stand up, tell us what they know. They're explaining in their own words some information that they have. When they explain it, that's when you know for sure that they have absorbed it. That's when the knowledge becomes part of them. They own it. And this is the same thing with foreign language. So that foreign language key of them teaching me the words, them pointing it out, drawing it, saying it slowly to me, lets me know that they own that word. And now I'm ready to move on after the activity is complete. The activity also needs to be very short. 10, 12 minutes for babies, like babies. I call them babies when they're under 10 because my biggest is old now. So 10 and under, 10 to 12 minutes, 10 to 15 years old, tops 20 minutes. At the scholar level, they can handle, they know what time frame, but I still tell them 20 minutes or less. But if they're engaged, they can be in charge at the scholar level. Okay, finishing. They taught somebody, and now you're ready to finish. So you've done however many steps within the activity, within the lesson, and now you're going to check for understanding again. Say, okay, we're almost done with our lesson now. Is there anything that you need to tell me about what you learned today? Can you give me a few more details? I wait for comprehension. So I would say the stuff that they could only understand if they grabbed it. So I'm speaking in Spanish at this point, and I'm waiting for them to nod or reply. Sometimes I ask a question and the kids think it's a yes or no question, but it's not. That lets me know that the comprehension hasn't happened. So then I go back and I say, okay, what you said was this. What I said was this. Then I wait for the light bulb. So there's a lot of waiting when you're finishing. You're waiting for them to grab it. You're not zooming through. You're calming down and you're slowly tying up. There's going to be questions in their voice. We're waiting and listening for when there's confidence. There's going to be some repetition here. So if they get it wrong, it's not like, oh, they have to keep guessing until they get it right. You have to go back and say, remember when we did this during the lesson? Remember when I read this part of it? Before that was blah, blah, blah. You don't remember that? Okay, let's go ahead and go back. Let's stand up, stretch, get some exercise, get a drink of water, and then we're going to go back to that part that you didn't quite get. So for me in the Spanish class, that would be, okay, let's go back to those 3 words. And now let's repeat them one more time. Then we come back to finishing. We skip the last part of the lesson and we come back to finishing until there's confidence. I'll say, okay, so do you remember that word now? And they do. You did it! Lo hicimos! We did it! And so we're praising them for grasping it. Wow, I knew you could do it and you did it. I know that was hard for part of the parts. I know that was frustrating for part of the parts, but you did it. Good job. What was your favorite part? And then what would you think we could do tomorrow? Do you want to do some more with this information? Literature, science? What do you think the person that wrote this lesson, like, how would you change it? What if you were teaching a 3-year-old? What if you were teaching grandma? How would you change this? So any kind of asking for more, how would you change it? And usually one of my kids would say, add snacks, add snacks, add snacks. And so we did frequently. One kid would say, I would do it on the floor. Okay, let's sit on the floor next time. Give them some ownership to what they're learning. And then when you ask for more, you can say, why? Why would you do that? And that again shows you that comprehension and makes it a deeper level, deeper ownership. It's not just surface, remember, check off and dump the way at least I did in public school for all the quizzes and tests, straight A student. I couldn't tell you anything about history or I guess some literature, but history or science, I did not get a good education. I received a good education. I performed well, but I didn't learn science or history until I was teaching my own children. And then again, thank them. You say, thank you. Thank you so much. You did such a good job. It was such a joy to do that lesson with you today. And so that was a big part of all of my Spanish classes. They would thank me. That was one of the reasons I became a homeschooler, y'all. My students in my homeschool classes thanked me. What? Nobody thanked me when I taught public school, ever. My thanks was my paycheck, which was, but now they thank me and my own kids thank me. And so I want to say thank you. Thank you for being engaged. It was such a joy to teach you. Thank you for the honor of being next to you while I got to see those light bulbs come on. That was so awesome. Let them know that you know this is an honor to have the freedom to be with them during day, what's today? A Tuesday at 11 a.m. You get to be next to them. Wow. Thank you. Not only thank you, but thank you, Lord. Thank you, your husband, for making it possible for you to be home next to your child while those light bulbs go on. What a blessing. Okay, so that's the basis of it, right? And don't worry, I'll sum up again. Don't worry. But after you've got, okay, I know how to start, I know how to do my activity, and I know how to finish. How often do I do it, and for how long? So short lessons, I told you that. Less than 20 minutes, usually, unless you're at the scholar level. If you can do short lessons in a surprise manner, that means fun, and that means this happens, and that means they grab more. So the lessons are more effective. Surprise manner, what does that mean? We used to do math on the trampoline. Even though we did it a lot, they were always surprised. Oh, let's do math on the trampoline. And they loved that. Under the table. I don't know. Maybe that's weird for me. I mean, I was weird. We would sit under the table a lot. I guess because I don't know, I liked it and the kids liked it. If you make a tent in the living room and you do your literature in there, or your history, whatever it is. Flashlights, turn all the lights off, go to that dark room in the hallway and use flashlights to do things. Anything you can do that makes that short lesson more poignant in their brain. Especially if you're hitting a hard thing or something that has some drudgery, add something to it where it's not drudgery. Repetition of 3 times per day, when it's unexpected, always gets a reaction. So if you do something unexpected 3 times, and it can be the same thing, let's do flashlights again. Let's do flashlights again. That gets a reaction. Again? Wow. Unless you have a kid that's like, no, not again. And sometimes you have that, having multiple kids in different age ranges has its pros and cons. Sometimes the herd motivates the rest of the herd. Sometimes you have that one in the herd that's not happy. So you give that kid, okay, well, what would you like to do for the next lesson? And so, but anytime you can add fun in 3 times, wow, what a great homeschooling day. So choose something odd. We used to do sock puppets. And so if you've been to my booth at Flip Flop Spanish, you got some googly eyes and we would talk with our hands. Are they in here? Yes, here's my googly eyes. So if you haven't come to a convention, come to a convention just for these. These are great for every lesson. I don't know. Okay, I might be simple-minded. All right, time. Connections do require time. So you want to keep your lessons short, but recognize you need kind of some boredom, some marinating, some time to sit down and make sure you have that connection made. Connection between you and your child, connection between your children, one to another, and connections to the information, the lesson that they're trying to grasp. Try not to zoom through while you're keeping your lessons short. It's a balance, but you'll get it. You'll start seeing the ebb and flow. 3 times per week. So Spanish requires 3 times per week. I have them in my classes. If at the weekly community homeschool center, they come to my classes once a week, and then they need to do 3 times at home. If you're doing it just at home, 3 times. So whether it's Spanish, science, history, math, I would say every day. Reading, I would say every day when they're learning to read. But everything else, really, if you just hit it 3 times, then that typically is enough repetition to keep that snowball rolling. Nothing's going to get hard or flat. You don't want to set it for a long time. Art, music, all the things. If you set it for a long time, you don't pick it up, you don't push it up the hill, you don't push it down the hill, the snowball doesn't grow, then it gets flat on one side. It's hard to push or it melts. Ugh. So when you're thinking of a snowball of information, a snowball of forming a habit, you have to keep it going regularly. That's why the 3 times. It's not so much about the repetition, it's about the frequency, how frequently you do it. And so every other day is about 3 times a week. And again, never ever long. I need to make sure they move. I need to make sure I move, right? So I'm moving back and forth. I spin in my chair. I get up and move during classes because I need to keep my brain engaged as well. Any human is going to respond typically the same ways, even if it's a different learning style. You're on the spectrum. You have learning style issues. You have visual processing disorders. You have all kinds of stuff. Movement always helps. Can I say that? Yeah. Almost always. I'm going to go disclaimer. Almost always helps. Okay. The daily tasks outside of short tasks becomes drudgery. So, meaning, if you do the same thing every day, even if it's chocolate, even if it's wonderful, even if it's flashlights under the table, if you do it the same way every day, it's not fun. So you want to either not do it every day, or you want to change it up the way you do it. Anything daily is like laundry. It's just so daily. Try not to make things daily, as in not different. Change it up. You have the freedom to do it. Do it. Short tasks can almost always be fun because you know why? Timers, competition, add a timer. Can we get this done in 3 minutes? 3 minutes? No way, Mom. 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. Boom. They've set a goal for themselves. Can we do this in 10 minutes? I bet I can do it in 8 minutes. Awesome. 8 minutes. Let's set a timer. So short tasks are almost always fun. Sometimes they zoom through it and they don't grab the information, but that's okay because now you have the finishing part. We're going to check for understanding, ask them how they would change it, and create the depth there. So short tasks, good. Add competition. When drudgery sets in, sometimes it does anyhow, add water or music. One of my kids would say, no, add food. Add water or music. So water, if you can do it like with your feet in a tub outside, warm water. Music, just putting music on in the background. Add any kind of water. If you can do something around water, it helps. If like we have a pond, so we go and sit by the pond. That's great. If you have a cooler and you put that on the back porch and you put your feet in water. If you can sit next to the kitchen sink on the countertop, put your feet in the water. I don't know what it is, but just having the water around you, if you give yourself a bowl, I mean, I know it gets messy, but just give the kids like a reason to mess with water. Maybe you need to mop the floor today anyhow. So you put out a few pans of water on some kitchen towels or some beach towels. Let them play in the water while you talk. It works. Cranky kids, add water. Assume nothing. Teach the kid. Thank them. Do it again. Oops. No, there we go. So how we start is important. Assume nothing, right? What's the activity? Be sure to teach the child, not the lesson. Yep. How we finish strong without armor, meaning don't let it bounce off. Double check to make sure there's engagement. And frequency. High frequency, low duration is win-win. Frequently lessons doing it frequently, and then not for long periods of time. I hope that helped you. I didn't quite make it through without my coffee. I don't know how long this is, so I will edit it down and add in my bloopers at the end. I always keep my bloopers because I like to keep it real. If you need help with Spanish, you can always check out Spanish Geniuses, and I'll have a curriculum highlight later on in this summit. I hope that helped. All right, so I'm Susie Ann Gose. I already said that. Let me try again. All right, let's see if this is recording right. That's step 1. Oh, I hit the wrong thing.